Hey everybody, this is Analytical Survival, and today I'm going to talk about web gear. And by doing that, I want to ask the question, what kind of web gear or load-bearing equipment does one actually need? Or why should a prepper have web gear to begin with? That's a good question. In addition to this, what sorts of implements should my web gear contain, and how should I go about organizing the layout of my tools? Now, I know a majority of folks don't really give their web gear much thought. Preppers, more often than not, concentrate largely on their bug-out bag, and that, in my opinion, is a mistake. Why is it a mistake, you ask? Because, as a prepper, you should try to anticipate as many different survival settings as possible, and you may find that a good many of those settings do not, in actuality, require plate carriers like these, or bug-out bags like these. They may instead require only a minimal layer of survival implements, all arranged on a streamlined platform like this. Now, let me give you a further example of what I mean. While going through the Special Forces qualification course many years ago, we paid special attention to learning infantry small unit tactics, and in particular, the art of patrolling. We spent lots and lots of time on patrolling. How to write a patrol order, how to move stealthily and in formation, how to set up a defensive perimeter, how to navigate accurately with a compass to a given objective, and on and on and on and on. And whenever we conducted raids or ambushes, we'd many times have to travel for days to get to an actual objective. And when we got near that objective, we'd set up what we called an objective rally point. And it was here where we ditched our rucksacks, and from there we moved onward to the objective itself with only our web gear and weapons. That is, we stripped down to only the bare mission essentials. And then we'd conduct the actual ambush, and then afterwards we'd make our way back to the ORP, pick up our rucksacks, and quietly withdraw from the area. Now, I'm saying all of this in order to give you an example of how some tasks naturally lend themselves to a streamlined rig, one that's light and contains only the minimal essentials for the operation at hand. And it doesn't have to be a military operation like the one I just described. Why? Because web gear, by its very design, is suited for a whole variety of everyday prepper tasks as well. Let me give you an example. Suppose, for instance, that you're at your retreat location and the economy has just tanked. Your web gear is actually an ideal rig to wear if you plan on patrolling the perimeter of that location. You certainly don't want to be walking around out there with just a flashlight or with some pepper spray. No, you're going to want, at the very minimum, a streamlined rig that contains a wide array of tools at the ready and on your person. Or how about standing guard as a sentry at your retreat location? In that case, you're going to want to stand guard while wearing web gear that contains, again, a wide array of tools at the ready and on your person. Or let's take another situation. How about if you were, again, at your retreat location and say you and your team developed a color-coded system to denote different levels of escalating danger? You could perhaps write into your action plans themselves that when conditions reached, say, a level orange, that everyone would be required at that moment to don their web gear, just as a precaution, so that everybody would be at the ready in the event that something did go down. Or let's look at another situation. Your web gear could also be worn while hunting or foraging for food, but perhaps you don't hunt that way today. That is, you don't wear web gear while hunting or foraging for food. I understand, but that's now with rule of law in place. In a WROL, however, you may want to reconsider bringing along some extra implements of survival just in case you were forced to stay out longer than you planned, or God forbid you got separated from your team. That way, you'd at least have a fighting chance to make it back to your retreat location. Okay, as you can see, there are quite a few survival scenarios where web gear actually makes more sense. It's not a bug out bag, no, but it can keep you alive just the same. And it's not a plate carrier either, but it can carry an equal amount of ammo, enough to keep you in the fight at the very least. Web gear essentially deserves a category all its own, and that's why I decided to create this video, in order to give you, the viewer, a closer look at how I organized and laid out my own web gear. Okay, let's get started. The very first thing you should consider is the harness and belt itself. And after trying out many brands, I found that the S-Tac Bushbore contained the best of all possible worlds. The chest rig itself comes with shoulder straps, as you see here. However, you can upgrade these to the padded shoulder straps, and that's what you see here. They not only come with a drag handle, but also a 5-row MOLLE panel in the back, which I use to carry either water or a small day pack, depending on what I'm doing in that situation. Now, perhaps the most important tool you can have on the web belt itself is some sort of utility knife. I know some folks like a big old bushcrafting knife, but I opted for something more streamlined and compact, something that was manageable and yet still very capable. And for me, that was the Essie Azula. Now, in order to attach it to the shoulder straps, I had to first have a tailor sew some PAL webbings here and here. I then used a malice clip to firmly put it in place. Here's the Essie Azula again. Small, yes, but very capable in my opinion. Now, the next important thing to consider is navigation, or how to get yourself to your objective and also back to your home base. Very important, folks. I myself, while in the military, have traveled for literally days and days at a time in triple canopy jungle with a reconnaissance squad of 12 foreign soldiers. And let me tell you, when all you have is a mapping compass, and that's all you have to get your squad there and back in one piece, this little teeny item right here becomes very precious. You start to safeguard it. You really protect it. And that's why it occupies a singular place on my chest where it's always easily accessible. Again, I had a tailor place PAL's webbing here and here, and then I attached the pouch again with malice clips. I have the compass itself attached to a tether made by Maxpedition, and this allows a compass to be securely anchored to my person at all times, and at the same time, it can be easily employed whenever I need it, as you see here. Now, the actual pouch itself is from Maxpedition as well. It is their Strobe GPS compass pouch, and within it I have a Cammenga Tritium 3H compass. It's very accurate and excellent for taking bearings. It's exactly what I used in the military, so I know its capabilities firsthand. Now, regarding firearms, everybody's web gear setup should, without exception, have a dedicated area for a sidearm. Now, whether you plan to carry a sidearm in every situation, that doesn't matter, as long as you have a dedicated area on your web belt where a sidearm can be attached when you actually need it. Here's my sidearm holster, which is a G-Code XST Kydex holster. They're excellent holsters, and I highly recommend them. Now, right next to the holster, I have my communications, and the pouch I use is from Uncle Mike's. It's the small radio GPS pouch, and I modified it slightly by taking off the cordage here and replacing it with an elastic hairband. That way, it has some stretch to it, as you see here, and because of that stretch, it can accommodate all my handheld communications, like my ham radio, my scanner, my GPS radio, or my walkie-talkie. Okay, in this area, I have a mini survival kit, and it's housed in a Maxpedition Anemone utility pouch. And here's what's inside: a water filter straw, which can filter up to 30 gallons of water, a fire starter, some wet fire tinder. I also have a spare compass made by Casper and Richter. This model is their Dakar compass, and it's an excellent sighting compass. It can take very accurate compass bearings, and I highly recommend it. Here is a pocket-sized UTM grid, useful for plotting map bearings, a Benchmade knife sharpener, a small green light, a signal mirror, and finally a Leatherman squirt multi-tool. Here in this 511 magazine pouch, I carry a cat tourniquet, and in the 511 magazine pouch right next to it, I carry one 9mm magazine with Speer Gold Dot 124 grain hollow points. Next to this, I have an HSGI bleeder blowout med pouch, and inside that, I have these items: a 14 gauge needle decompression kit, 6 1/4 inch trauma shears, a 3.5 by 3.5 inch quick clot clotting sponge, a 4-inch trauma dressing, some extra large nitrile gloves, and finally some compressed gauze. Now in this final pouch here, which is a 511 strobe GPS pouch, I have 10 by 25 binoculars by Brunton. Now that does it for the front side of the web belt. The rear of the web belt contains magazine pouches here, which can carry up to 6 30-round mags for a total of 185 5.56 rounds. Now, these magazines can be easily accessed, as you can see here, while the front of the web belt remains intact with all your survival gear. Now, the last and final portion I'd like to go over is the back MOLLE panel that you see here. It can be used either to carry a water bladder like those made by Camelback, or it can carry a small day pack. And that all depends on how you're using this rig at any given situation. And that's what I like most about this back panel here. It gives me options. Okay, to summarize, you need web gear. Why? Because in the world of preparedness gear, it serves a specified purpose. Functionally speaking, it lies somewhere in between a bug-out bag and a plate carrier. You can patrol with it, you can pull security detail with it, you can conduct multiple day missions with it, and you can fight the enemy with it, and much, much more. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. What I've given you here are merely suggestive options. And by that I mean your web gear setup does not have to look like mine. I'll say that again. Your setup does not have to look exactly like the one you see here. Rather, use this video to gain some ideas and to further your own research. And that means building a setup that suits your own needs and preferences. Everyone's unique. We all do things a little bit differently. And that's something we need to always remember and respect in our prepper community. All right, that's it for now. This is Analytical Survival signing off and saying, stay safe, my brothers and sisters.